Hello everyone. Hello, and welcome. Well, first of all, I just want to thank you all for coming here, taking the time out of your probably very busy schedules. Anyways, hi, hello there, my name is Sylvaen Demonbane. And yeah, welcome to my debut stream. There's really not much going on here. You'll probably be sitting here watching the stream, listening to me talk about myself. Either way, I certainly still really appreciate that you're here to watch, or at the very least, listening. How is everyone doing today? That's very good to hear. Hello and welcome again. Or rather, for the first time. Yeah, some of you might have seen me before, some of you might have not. Welcome. Thank you for the follow. I certainly hope to see you again sometime. How's the volume, by the way? In terms of like my own voice and background music? That's great. Right then, I suppose it's time to introduce myself. Just give me a moment here. Alright, so here is some basic information about myself. Like I've mentioned before, my name is Sylvaen Demonbane. I am a half-elf, age 182. I am 175 centimeters tall, and my birthday is on 21st of February. I'm a knight errant and a demon slayer. Yes, I realize that I am quite old. But as far as elves go, I'm still fairly young. Maybe getting up there a little bit, but it's still some time away before I am what most people would consider old. Right, so like I said, I'm a knight errant. And I am a demon slayer. What is a knight errant? That's a good question. Let me find the exact definition for it. It is a knight errant is a knight wandering in search of chivalrous adventures. Usually, they are a figure of medieval chivalric romance literature. An adjective errant. The adjective errant indicates how the knight errant would wander the land in search of adventures to prove his chivalric virtues, either in knightly duels or in some other pursuit. I suppose in fewer words, I'm simply just a knight on a journey. I don't have a particular destination or any sort of real objective, but I certainly hope to find something. Actually, let me just bring this back here. Right. Now I can read my little biography there. It's quite a lot of words, so I shan't bore you too much with it. I mean, you can always pause and read it at your own time. But this is just a slight backstory to myself. Okay, let me bring up this next page here. There it is. There's a BGM. Right, so my illustrator is Hiro at Hiri, and my Live 2D modeler is Bree. You can find her on Twitter. She streams herself, and she too is a VTuber, so whenever you have the time, you can check out her channel. Pretty good stuff, although you might you might find some of the things that happen on stream be questionable. Truly, I do worry about her health sometimes. But yes, I actually have quite a lot of siblings. Neo over here in chat is one of them. Unfortunately, it seems like Genga isn't here, because three of us, we've actually collaborated twice in a row. Who's my favorite sibling? Well, now that you've asked me that question, I'm quite obligated to say that's you, Neo. Now please put the gun away. I'm not sure whether if I would say we have too many siblings. There's at least 9 of us. Some of them we've not reached out to yet. But you know, having more siblings is always a good thing. A larger family is always nice and all. That's true, we certainly don't have enough until we can fill up a custom herbs game. Until you have to fight over the inheritance. I'm just saying I don't have to worry too much about inheritance. I'm fine on my own. Alright. Let's see. Alright, let's move on to things that I like and dislike. Some of the things that I like are, well, right here. It's not an exhaustive list because there are quite a lot of things that I do like, but I can't possibly fit them all on a single page here. So I just picked out a few that I've felt that are a little bit more interesting. Right, so handmade items. This can go anywhere from handmade trinkets to more ambitious projects like swords, pieces of armor, paintings. I really like seeing how people work their craft. In recent days, I've actually been quite active in trying all sorts of crafts myself. Just yesterday, actually, I've tried my hand a little bit at working with stained glass. It's... oh, yeah, the thing about working with glass, it's a bit strange when you try to solder lead onto copper. The flux that they use to basically like join lead to copper, when it starts to boil, it kind of smells a little bit like peanut butter. Now I certainly hope that I wasn't breathing in lead fumes, but I suppose I'll find out in about 10 to 20 years. No, it doesn't actually. I did all this inside an indoor studio, so I think that was fine for the entire duration. It's quite a tedious process actually, and the amount of work that's put into it is very meticulous. Ah, Critter. Q. I haven't seen you in a while. I've heard artificial banana flavoring tastes weird because it tastes like the nearly extinct Grossmickel banana that used to be prevalent. I've actually read the same thing, and I believe that's what the original bananas used to taste like. I'm just thankful that the bananas that we have now don't taste like that, because honestly that is nasty. And yes, you might find that it's a very oddly specific thing to dislike, but it's one of the things that I truly cannot stand. Oh, working down the list. I really like natural scenery, so whenever I go on holidays, like overseas, I prefer to go to places where it's far away from the cities. The natural beauty of the world is truly something to admire. Sometimes it's a bit out of the way to travel to, but I can assure you the journey itself is worth it. And that's life, isn't it? It's not so much about the destination, but the journey itself. Sunrises and sunsets. Probably I've seen it 1,000 times over, but it's one of the few sights that I've probably never will get tired of. I'm sure you do too. Well, some of you at least. You've kind of already guessed, I really like swordsmanship. And a bit more about that later. Tactical Snooze. Hello there, and thank you for the follow. Yes, I've already talked about artificial banana flavoring. Please do not torment me with anything like that. It's awful, truly. Like, I don't consider myself to be a very picky eater, but anything with this flavoring is just nasty. Now, one thing I particularly dislike is malice. Now, what does that mean? It's quite simple. I just really don't like it when people do things to intentionally harm or hurt somebody else. Life is tough enough as it is, we don't need to make it harder for each other. And I suppose that's one way to, or rather, my own motto for living life. Just be nice to each other, you know? Don't be an asshole. It's not that difficult. Okay. Yes, I realize that's very generic advice, but, you know, it's something that I personally hold true to. Warrior poet vibes. I certainly wish I can articulate my words a little bit better, but that's a nice sentiment to have. And lastly, I suppose, is loud noises in the morning. Now, I'll just let you all know that I am an extremely light sleeper. Like, any sort of noise and I can just wake up almost instantly. It's great when you actually wake up, because I don't sleep through alarms at all. But on the other hand, it's not great when you try to sleep in and there's a lot of activity going on, be it at home or outside the windows. Like, I live in the city, so it gets real noisy outside. Which is also partly the reason why I'm streaming at this hour, which is nighttime over here on this side of the world. And good morning to you too, Q. I hope you have a good day ahead. Alright, let's see. I'm supposed to tell you a little bit more about myself so that you can get a better picture of what kind of person I am. Can talk about stuff that I like, such as games and music. I think that's pretty standard for most VTubers. You get a pretty good grasp of what sort of character they are. Games. I really like Dark Souls, and by extension Demon's Souls and Bloodborne. You know, Souls-like games. It's not so much... Actually, it's actually really about the mechanics itself. It feels very involved, you know? Timing is a very important thing for these games. And in some way, it's actually quite similar to sword fighting in real life. You can't just simply swing a weapon around. You'll get tired real fast. Am I going to play the new Baldurs Gate? I actually do have the new Baldurs Gate, although I'm actually waiting for the full release to come. For what it's worth, what little I've played, I really enjoyed it. It's certainly a few steps away in terms of difference from the older Baldur's Gate games, but I enjoyed it nonetheless. Let's go indeed. Yeah, another thing I like a lot about the Souls game is that the art direction is superb. It's not just the the items, weapons and armor, but the environment design, and even the enemy design is so quite impressive to me. I probably should have grouped Baldur's Gate and classic RPGs together. But, you know how it is. I particularly enjoyed playing Diablo 1 and 2, especially 2, because that was... I believe the last time I played it was back in my childhood. So that was quite some time ago. I really did enjoy it, especially when I was together with my cousins, actually. We used to take turns playing that game over the holidays. It is indeed a classic of classics, Fred. The remake for Diablo 2 looks pretty good. Probably wait for its full release to play it as well. Now, I really like the Ace Combat games. I started off playing Ace Combat 4, and then followed by 5 and 0. That was sometime in the 2000s, 2010. And then for a bit I played 6 quite a lot, because, you know, that was the only game I had on the Xbox 360. But oh man, when Ace Combat 7 came out, that was really something. It had been years since like the last proper game came out in the series. And I will say that the series as a whole is very extremely quotable. Some of you can probably attest to that. And perhaps some of you watching this later on might agree with me as well. This is what V2 was made for. I quite enjoy arcade racing games. Need for Speed is definitely up there. Started back in Underground. Then that was Underground 2, Most Wanted, Carbon. Recently I've been playing Need for Speed Heat, and that's quite fun too. Oh, I don't really need to talk much about it since it's a racing game. It's not exactly Forza Horizon, so I'm not an excellent driver, but it's fun. I enjoy it. Yes, I would say it is indeed speedy. Armored Core. I really like Armored Core 4 and 4 Answer. 5 wasn't really my thing, but there were a few things that were introduced in 5 that was fairly interesting. Though overall, I still enjoyed 4 and 4 Answer the most. I really like giant robots. You have no idea how excited I was when Daemon X Machina was released for PC. That was, I'd say the game is quite similar to the Armored Core format, and it's a game that I definitely recommend. Unfortunately, the player base is a little bit dead, though. Yeah, but I suppose as much as you can expect from a smaller company. That said, though, Armored Core was developed by FromSoft. Story's a little bit vague. Like, FromSoft is not really known for their excellent storytelling. But at the very least, it was cohesive enough for you to understand what's going on. What I don't get though is how did 4 and 4 Answer lead to 5? Half-sized mechs. Oh, co-op action games. I really like playing with other people. If you've seen me on Neo's streams the past 2 weeks, I've quite have a fun time playing with her and Ginga. It's pure chaos. But it's very enjoyable. It is indeed a lot of fun. I certainly hope to be able to play with you two soon again. Perhaps with one more sibling if we can drag one more into our little collab group here. Certainly looking forward towards that. But yes, I can probably guess. I am quite a sociable person. I like making friends. I like spending time with friends. Although, I would say that I have a little bit of a difficulty in that regard. While I might be quite sociable, I am not really a talkative person, so a lot of people think I'm a bit of a recluse, or simply just shy. I suppose they're not too far from the truth. It's like sometimes you just don't know what to say to someone new, you know? But hey, that's why I'm here. That's a schmood indeed. Alright, let's move on to my last slide over here. Now, music. Here's a few bands and artists that I listen to a lot. In fact, most of my personal playlist consists of tracks done by these few. I'm certainly glad to see that you all like the same music that I do, and more importantly, that you approve of my taste in music. Yeah, Royal Blood, The Black Keys, Nothing But Thieves, Muse, Kasabian, Queens of the Stone Age, Jabez, and Tatsuro Yamashita. Of course, this is not a definite list of all the music that I like, because truthfully I listen to anything that's catchy enough. What about Linkin Park? Yeah, I like Linkin Park. I haven't listened to them in quite a while, but back when I was younger I listened to them quite a lot. I mean, like most people, I had an angsty teen phase. I mean, Linkin Park was definitely up there with My Chemical Romance and Fall Out Boy, Panic at the Disco. You know, those few. I still listen to them from time to time. Not as much, but I still like the stuff that they like. Stuff that they produce. Oh, that's not quite boomer taste, isn't it? I mean, they were quite popular in like the mid 2000s, 2010s. That wasn't that many years ago. Well, I suppose if you've lived as long as I have, 10 years or so isn't too big of a deal. Still stuck in your emo days. Hey, no shame in that. Yeah, of course not. I always like to say this to my friends. Being a boomer is a state of mind. For all I know, you could be like 50 years old and still not be a boomer. Personally, I think it's just not stagnating and not being caught up too much in the past. Do I drink Monster Zero Ultra? Oh, yes. Yes, I do actually. And I would say it's actually the best monster. How am I a boomer just for drinking Monster Ultra? You own a John Deere lawnmower and annoy your son on Saturday morning? Well, I'll say this. If I had the money to own a house that has a lawn, damn right I'm going to annoy my son on a Saturday morning with a John Deere lawnmower. Landed property is expensive, my man. Do I wear socks and sandals? Absolutely not. Gotta make sure to play AC/DC while I'm mowing the lawn. I like AC/DC. Yeah, I suppose I should have added that to the list as well. Classic rock is pretty good. Oh shit, maybe I am a boomer. Alright. Let me see. Oh yes, there is one thing I'd like to show you. Now you've probably seen my full model earlier in the first that first page there. But let me show you this. Just give me a moment. That is a good question, Credo. Are you a boomer? Personally, I think being a boomer is a state of mind. So, whether or not you are one, it's entirely up to you. Oh, that's a very large image. Right, I am a boomer then. Now what does that mean? The male pattern baldness doesn't care about your state of mind though. Well, I suppose if you're rich enough, you can not care about your male pattern baldness. Let's look at Elon Musk. Have you seen his hairline back in the PayPal days? So, suddenly done a good job for himself. Oh. Okie dokie, here it is. Yeah, I suppose this, you can call it my character sheet here. I actually designed, well, myself. This was done by me. Yeah. What's a boomer move? Oh, it's keyboard insensitivity. Oh, it's supposed to play itself there. But yeah, here's my character design. Done this myself. Quite proud of it, actually. You can kind of see here that I actually lost my train of thought. Jeez, how can your mom let you have two swords? Well, let me tell you. You need a sword for every situation. You need a big sword when you can swing around. However, you won't always be in an environment where you can swing or you can reliably wield a large sword. Hence, you need a small sword, something that's a little bit more agile. And you always want to keep it close on hand too. But yeah, I like to think that I'm at least somewhat decent in digital art. I actually modeled those swords myself. A double flintlock action. Yes, because sometimes one bullet isn't enough. You never know when you'll need to start blasting. Man's out there in full battle gear playing video games. Why yes, yes indeed. If you die in game, you die in real life. Such is the life of a VTuber. Oh, that's certainly very quotable. Probably should hang that up on my wall somewhere. Spy Kids got dark. Yeah, that kind of just reminds me of that one scene where I think it was Elijah Wood starring as the guy in that one Spy Kids movie. He showed up for a whole like 5 minutes and just instantly died. But then again, the whole Spy Kids series has bunch of really strange moments too. Alright then, let me just shift the scene here. Listen, sometimes you can't afford the actor fees. Well, I mean, they hired him in the first place. Couldn't you just keep him for more than like one scene? It's amazing because you can see the exact moment when his contract runs out. Well, can't argue with you there. Oh, in case you're wondering just where I am right now. If you look behind me over here, I'm kind of camped out in front of an abandoned castle. Or on the ruins of one. Night sky certainly is a nice view to look at. Do you think God stays in heaven because he too lives in fear of what he's created? Yeah, that's deep, bro. I'll drink to that. Yes, it certainly makes for a good resting spot. It's well defensible at the very least. And there's a lot of open space, so lots of room for all sorts of activities. Ah, right. For the last bit here, I actually have a list of questions that I've gathered from viewers. Some of you might have asked these questions yourself. Alright, let's see. First question. Why did I take up the sword? Well, yeah. Kind of explained better in my backstory here. I wanted to follow in the footsteps of my foster father, who was himself a knight of the Emperor's personal entourage. Most heroes that have myths and legends about them, they tend to wield swords as well. There's a lot of mysticism, I suppose, to the weapon. And I too, like, hope to achieve that level of renown. On the more pragmatic side, the sword is very comfortable to wield, and it's probably of all the weapons I've handled, the sword is definitely my favorite out of all of them. Second question, how do I pronounce my name? Oh, I've heard my name being pronounced one or two ways. It can either just be Sylvain or Sylvaen. Whether or not you want to emphasize that E in there, it's up to you. But yes, you can alternate between Sylvain or Sylvaen. Although, most people just simply just call me Sylv. That's a lot easier, isn't it? Can I hang around later, so catch you later. Oh, okay, suddenly catch you later. See ya. While you were out partying, he studied the blade. Unironically, yes. I'm pretty sure like some of the people I know were probably out having parties at the same time while I was doing my own training. How deep is my knowledge on swords? Fairly broad. I wouldn't say that I'm an expert on it. Definitely, by no means am I an expert on that topic. Though, if you ask me some questions, I probably have a few opinions here and there. How deep is my love? Now, I know this is a reference to something, but I just can't put my finger on it. Yes, I know a little bit about swords. At the very least, I can tell you parts of sword and what kind of sword does what best. Next question over here is, do I name my swords? No, I don't name my swords. I know lots of people name their swords, but I don't. Mostly because I just can't think of a good name for them. It's probably just easier to refer to them as this sword and that sword. Which sword is my favorite? Definitely the one that's on my back here. This really big sword with the dark blade. I really like wielding two-handed swords. Yeah, great swords are really my thing. Do I take name suggestions? Depends. What are you suggesting? Easy. Now, why would I want to name my sword Easy? Sword. Now that's a good name. Elongated Musketeer. What do you mean, why not? I suggest Stabby McStabface. makes it easier to differentiate between its role and the role for Slicey McSliceface. Well, that's certainly a good suggestion. Let's see. The next question, would like to know a little bit more about my family background, as well as why do I do the things that I do? Now, that's a bit of a vague question, but at least the first part is a little bit more easier for me to answer. My household is a long and proud line of demon slayers, and that's it. It's tradition, I suppose. Yeah, you can call it a family tradition for everyone to, for each generation to be able to hunt demons on their own. Do the pistols have names? No, they don't actually have names. I don't think I've actually named any of my equipment here. Why, do you have name suggestions for the pistols? Gun and gun 2. Yeah, sure, let's go with that. Pop and lock. Piss and toll. Couldn't have said it better myself. How many demons have I slain? That's a good question. I've actually lost count. I mean, usually, whenever a town or a city has a demon problem, they come to me. So, you know, I don't really keep track. Sometimes they're not even demons at all, just they're run-of-the-mill monsters. Oh, definitely not. Too badass to count. Or maybe I'm just hiding the fact that I can't count. Have you thought of that? Oh yeah, demon slaying is a family profession and tradition at the same time. Let's see. How does a fantasy knight know how to use a computer and play video games? Well, wouldn't you like to know? Let's see. How did I obtain these two pistols? Well, they are a relatively new thing to see on the battlefield these days. I'm certainly lucky enough to get my hands on two of them. If you've ever seen cuirasses in battle, they are quite a sight to behold. Fully armored knights that ride into battle with pistols. Refuses to elaborate and leaves. Now, yes, that is indeed the chat and based thing to do these days, as the kids say. Let me see whether I can bring up an image here. Ah, there it is. Pappenheim Cuirassiers. Alright. Here it is. Might as well start referring to your viewers as whippersnappers. You keep that up and I might. Yeah, look at that. It's not something you'd think you'd see, but yes, there are indeed mounted knights on with pistols. I believe they were quite prominent in battlefield warfare in the earlier part of the 17th century. Don't quote me on that though, I'm not too good with the dates and time periods. Earliest recorded drive-by. Oh yes, it is quite useful to be able to be that mobile and carry that sort of firepower with you. You're quoting me? Oh, I suppose that depends on what exactly you're quoting. Drive by. Nah, son, right sideways. Let's see. All right. Let's move on to the next question over here. That is, do I actually have heterochromia, or are one of my eyes fake? Excuse me, what do you mean by if one of my eyes are fake? Oh, I can move both my eyes. They're certainly not fake eyes. Alright. Are both eyes fake? Absolutely not. I can see perfectly fine. Thank you very much. Look, I can wink. That's something someone with fake eyes would say. Well, unfortunately, it seems like I've been exposed. Play video games and sword fights by echolocation. Oh, that actually reminds me of a story. Or rather, an experience, rather. Back in a couple of years back, actually, before the whole plague that we are experiencing right now, the people that I train with, we used to have social gatherings every month or so. And this is one time, or rather, actually a few times, where we played this game called Blind Samurai. Basically, we just get two dudes and we place them on both ends of the hall and blindfold them. And we gave them pool noodles to use as swords. And not to boast, but I've turned up I came out first place in all of the tournaments. So, as it stands, I am still the reigning Blind Samurai champion. You can use that as a party game if you like. And straight up scream at the monitor. And that's how you play Dark Souls. Well, believe me, I believe that's how most people play Dark Souls. Just scream. Yeah. I certainly wish that, you know, social gatherings can happen again. Just so I can defend my title as reigning champion. Alright. What sword style am I using, and what techniques I have learned and mastered? Now that's a bit of a tricky question to answer. Well, when it comes to sword fighting, I suppose I follow the teachings of Lichtenauer, a very well-known sword master from ages past. Although, every once in a while I like to throw in a little bit of a figurado as well. I'll just let you know that wielding a longsword and a greatsword is quite different from each other. A greatsword handles much more like a polearm than you think it would. As for techniques, I would say there isn't a single technique that I've particularly mastered. So, because until you can execute the technique 100% of the time flawlessly, I wouldn't consider it as something that's mastered. I'm certainly learning and improving, for sure. Alright, let's see. What kind of music do you listen to? Well, as you can see, I've listed out my tasty music earlier. Feel free to turn back to that whenever you can. Next question. If you could be a knight or knight equivalent in any place or time period, where and when would you pick? Given the long and illustrious history of knights, that's not an easy question to answer, that's for sure. Spoiled for choice, I would say. Although I have given this some thought while I was collecting the questions earlier, and I would say I would certainly like to be a knight in service of Emperor Maximilian I. I can go on and on about why, but mostly because that time period, or rather Emperor Maximilian in particular, He's built quite a reputation for himself. He's almost this semi-mythical figure. He lets his presence be known, even without being there physically. You can see this in all of the works of art that he's commissioned, the architecture, the way that he's ruled as well, and more importantly, the many numerous suits of armor that he has personally commissioned. Only semi-mythical, not full mythical. Well, of course, because at the end, he is still a mortal man. Well, here's a little bit of interesting info about Emperor Maximilian upon his death. For penitential reasons, Maximilian gave very specific instructions for the treatment of his body after his death. He wanted his hair to be cut off and his teeth knocked out, and the body was to be whipped and covered with lime and ash, wrapped in linen, and then publicly displayed to show the perishableness of all earthly glory. Because, like I said, at the end of the day, he is a mortal man, and he wants to show everybody that that's exactly what he is. He might be emperor of, and he might be a very legendary figure, even for his time, but he is still human at the end of it. Call it humility, I suppose. Oh yes, he has left behind quite an impressive legacy. He was a keen supporter of the arts and sciences, and he surrounded himself with many scholars. He also had a great passion for armor, like I've mentioned, not only as equipment for battle or tournaments, but as an art form. The armor that was made during his time are, in my opinion, the best looking ones throughout the entire timeline and history of armored knights. Now, there is one bit of one bit of trivia that I liked the most, and that was his personal sword. I believe they called it just simply called the Sword of Maximilian, but let me see whether I can find the exact passage for it. Recently, actually, there has been an exhibition of Maximilian I and his many suits of armor. I believe the exhibition was called The Last Knight. And in this exhibition, proudly displayed was an object called the Sword of Maximilian, despite the symbols that cover it, especially with the fire steels, flaming flints, and the crosses of St. Andrew, all of which are badges of the Burgundian Order of the Golden Fleece, a society of monarchs and nobles that Maximilian revived, led and sought to fashion into a 16th century version of NATO, I suppose. This sword's deep cuts and nicks on the edges of the guard that face the points of the blade prove that the weapon saw active service in combat. Most of the time, very fancy pieces of equipment, be it weapons or armor, were usually reserved for tournament fighting. It was basically just for show, you could say. But not for Maximilian the First. A lot of the things that he's commissioned, he brought to battle himself. Let me see whether if I can find an image of this sword. Alright, let me just get rid of the background here. Oh, this is a very large image. Just give me a moment. Alright, there you go. That is Sword of Maximilian First. I'll zoom in here so we can see the details a little bit more. Look at that. Tell me that isn't the most beautiful sword you've ever seen. Engravings grant no tactical advantage whatsoever. I would argue that in the case of Emperor Maximilian, it certainly did. You see this in the battlefield, and you see your emperor wielding it in all of its glory. Would you not be inspired to ride by his side, to fight and die for him, to spill your blood in duty to your nation? And I suppose Maximilian had that sort of effect to the people that he commanded. But you see, Maximilian I died of old age. And unlike many kings and emperors, he led at the front instead of far behind the front lines. He fought in battle quite often, but that's it. He's not too fond of war, simply because of the losses that everyone incurs, not just for himself, but the people in the kingdom as a whole. To answer your question and your apparent surprise, he was born in 1459 and died in 1519 at a ripe old age of 59 years old. Yes, all myth-making aside, Maximilian seems to have gone to great lengths to avoid war whenever he could. Not only did he know defeat, he knew that win or lose, war exacted a heavy toll. Now, isn't that an ideal to strive towards? I would say perhaps he might be, in my opinion, one of the best rulers that your world has seen. Now there's this one quote that I remember reading somewhere. There is much wrong in the way that kingdoms run themselves. Many who rule do not deserve to, and many who are ruled could make a better fist of it. Oh well, that was quite a bit of a tangent. I still actually have a few more questions to answer. What kind of games do I plan to play? What games am I playing? Well, I like to think that, or rather I plan to play mostly classic RPG games. So things like Baldur's Gate and whatnot. That said, whenever there is a new game that comes out that catches my attention, I probably might play that too. I've been thinking about Resident Evil 8, though I probably might play it after the hype has died down. There's quite a lot of people playing it right now, and you know, it's hard to compete, especially since I'm just starting out and all. Oh yes, I'm certainly planning to play Baldur's Gate soon, maybe. Probably some of the Elder Scrolls games. If I could get Daggerfall to work on my PC, I probably might do a play of that. Certainly will take a lot of time for that game though, because just the sheer size of it is massive. So, Daggerfall, maybe Morrowind, definitely Oblivion and Skyrim. Elder Scrolls is nice. Do I play ESO? I actually used to play Elder Scrolls Online, but I'm not sure what caused me to drop it. Actually, let me take a look at my Steam library and see how long I've actually played it. How many hours I've put into the game. It's not a lot, but it's something. Let's see here. I played it for a total of 15 hours, so not a lot for an MMO. Especially if you consider how many hours I've put into Final Fantasy XIV. It's 931 hours. I don't remember whether was it Genga or Neo who was shocked by that number. Yeah, it's close to 1,000 hours into 14. I'm quite excited for that 6.0 patch. But yeah, look forward to that. Yes. Let's see. Why am I doing this? Like what? Why am I being a VTuber? Many reasons, I suppose. There's always like the obvious answer of you know, chasing trends, wanting to become a popular figure, especially since I'm streaming and all. I mean, since many years ago, I always wanted to stream, but never really got around to it or was comfortable about it. In fact, it's only in recent years that I've gotten more comfortable with speaking a bit more. That's it, I'm still not all the way out there yet. And in a way, this helps me articulate my words a little bit better. As you can tell by now, it takes a while for me to find the right words to find the right words to say before I speak. So I certainly hope to improve myself while I do this. Do I like jazz? Yeah, I actually do like jazz. I mean, I'm not well versed in like jazz artists, but I like the sound. You know. Do you like jazz? Well, yes, I do. And here's my last question that I've collected in the list. I did that on purpose. I assure you, I definitely received that as a question, like exactly that wording. You like jazz? Anyways, on to the last question, which is, would you rather fight 100 duck-sized horses or 1 horse-sized duck? I see the one question that I'd like to ask everyone has been finally turned back on me. Oh, my answer is, it depends. If, I'm fully equipped with what I have right now, I would certainly take on the single horse-sized duck. It's not very often you get to fight giant monsters, so always take an opportunity to push yourself to the limits and go even further beyond. In this case, a large waterfowl might be a lot more than what most people can handle. Ducks are ferocious, but at least it's not a goose. I'm built different. Yeah, I'd rather just fight that one horse-sized duck because I'm built different. An ultimate demon thing. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all if there was indeed a demon that took the form of a horse-sized duck. Would I rather have only 100 sinks or 100 toilets? Now that's a tough choice. I'll just go with 100 toilets and leave it at that. I'm not gonna explain why. Well, anyway, that sums up all the questions that I've received so far. So if you have any other questions that you'd like to ask, feel free to. Hundred sinks, no doubt. Better to sink in the better to shit in the sink than sink in the shit. It's truly wisdom for the ages right there. All right. Let's see here. Now, I've been told that by quite a few people that I have a very nice voice. Well, I wouldn't be able to tell you that myself, but you know, if it's for someone else to claim on my behalf. So let me read to you a story, maybe. Let's see. Now here is one of my favorite authors that I've discovered recently. He goes by the name of H.E. Bulstrode. And here is his story about the Dent Vampire. Let me just turn down the music here a little bit. The Dent Vampire. If you should find yourself in the picturesque village of Dent in Cumbria, formerly of the West Riding of Yorkshire, it is unlikely that the phenomenon of vampirism will be the uppermost in your mind. Your attentions are more likely to be focused upon the scenery or seeking refreshments in the local pub. And yet, this charming parish lays claim to an unusual episode in its history that's said to have involved the refusal of one of its members to lie quietly in his allotted portion of God's acre. The events that comprise the tale of the Dent Vampire are said to have taken place some 3 centuries or so ago, although I cannot, of course, vouch for its veracity. Thankfully, this story is not centered upon some insufferable angst-ridden teen, but the unquiet remains of a certain wizened villager named George Hodgson, who in all respects, other than his great age, appeared quite unremarkable. Born in 1621, he is said to have led a blameless life, and when he passed away at the age of 94 in 1715, he was buried in the community in which he had always lived. However, shortly after his burial, a number of strange and dark rumors began to circulate concerning the deceased, with a number of people swearing that they had subsequently seen him both in the village and further afield in Dentdale. Some thought that it was his spirit that wandered, whereas others were convinced that it was his undead body that had physically crawled out of his grave back into the land of the living. It was now that strange stories concerning Hodgson, when he was alive, came to light. One man, claiming to have been a friend of the deceased, affirmed that he knew him to have drunk a glass of sheep's blood daily, whereas a neighboring farmer had even more damning story to tell. His claim was that George was a shapeshifter, able to transform himself, rather like Mrs. Mothersole in M.R. James's The Ash Tree, into a hare. In support of his latter assertion, recounted an incident from some years earlier. It just so happened that he had shot a black hare, and having failed to kill the creature, followed its trail of blood right to George Hodgson's door. Peering through his window, he witnessed something most unexpected. The householder was absorbed in the work of dressing a gunshot wound. The explanation for him, at least, was clear. Witchcraft. By now, thoroughly unsettled, the good citizens of Dent convened a meeting. The upshot was that George Hodgson's body should be exhumed. It is not recorded how long after his death that the exhumation is said to have taken place, but his remains were found to lack the normal signs of corruption. The corpse's skin was pink and healthy, and both his nails and his hair had grown. He was, they concluded, undead, and so they did what they believed they had to. George was buried at the church's door with a brass stake driven through his chest. This, it seemed, proved sufficient to prevent him from walking again, for there have been no subsequent sightings of the vampire of Dent. Now, wasn't that something? Now, do check out the author's other works. Once again, his name is H.E. Bulstrode. That's H.E. initials. Bulstrode, B-U-L-S-T-R-O-D-E. Now, I wouldn't equate vampirism to heresy, though heresy tends to invite unwanted guests, and that's where I step in. While the Inquisitors would handle the before, I will be handling what comes after. Any demons summoned by any misbegotten summoner or practitioner of heresy, I will have to deal with swiftly and surely. Well, that is all I have for tonight. And before I go, there are a few people that I would like to thank. You, first of all, for coming to my stream. My friends at the Bastion. Both Bastions, actually. You know who you are. And also the friends that I've made from the Oculus. In fact, you're right here, right now. Q, Critter, thank you all for coming. And lastly, all of my other friends who've been a great support in taking this first step. Without a lot of you, and perhaps I wouldn't even be here. So truly, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Well, that's all that I have for today. Thank you for coming, and good night. I'll see you again soon. A lot sooner than you think.